All right, this next story is going to floor you. It comes from WorldNet Daily. Your children should be the most important things in your life, right? I mean, that's your family. You should be able to parent them how you want to, and you're not going to believe this. This is just nuts. Again, from WorldNet Daily. The Obama administration has launched another challenge to the rights of individuals to act on their religious beliefs, this time focusing on a family of homeschoolers. Listen up, all you homeschoolers. They're coming for you. Decide to remain free. This is me, not the article. Decide to remain free. Do it. Do what you need to do, parents. Back to the article. The administration already has argued in legal cases against the Obamacare contraceptive mandate that religious business owners can be forced to pay for the abortion drugs and so on and so forth for their workers, which is in violation of their own religious beliefs. Repeatedly, the government has referenced its dedication to the freedom of worship, altering the First Amendment's assurances of freedom of religion. You know, the liar, of course, is going to lie. But now comes a case in which the administration is seeking to return a family of homeschoolers to Germany, where they will likely be prosecuted for their religious objections to the mandatory public school system. Attorneys at the Justice Department are arguing before the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that a government has every right to demand that the parents send their children to public schools, even if the school's teaching conflicts with the family's religious beliefs. Let's just stop there for a second. So forget the fact that this family's from Germany and they want to send them back to Germany. We'll get to that in a second. But what's the Department of Justice's argument in the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals? That the government has every right to demand that parents send their children to public schools. Because there are so many people out there saying, well, I'm going to be free. I'm going to raise my kids the way I want to raise them. I don't care how many times Child Protective Services come out here. I'm making a decision to be free. I'm going to raise my kids. Well, now that has irritated the Justice Department and the Obama administration, and they're going to court to get the power to say no. If your kids aren't in public schools, we're going to take them to public school. Let's continue with the article. The administration contends subjecting children to those teachings for several dozen hours a week doesn't violate any religious or human rights. However, as the lawyer for the couple says, quote, does anyone think our government would say to an Orthodox Jewish parent they can force their children to eat pork products 22 to 26 hours per week because the rest of the time they can feed them kosher food? Of course not. He warned that while the case involves German homeschoolers who were granted asylum in the United States, and that's huge, by the way, by an immigration judge because of the persecution they likely would face by being returned to Germany. Yeah, oh my goodness. Anyway, let's continue. To quote the lawyer again, when the United States government says that homeschooling is a mutable choice, they are saying that it is a characteristic that the government can legitimately coerce you to change. In other words, you have no protected right to choose the education for your children. Our nation could remove the ability to homeschool, and your choice would be mutable, since the government has the authority to force you to implement their wishes, he said. Think of the ramifications of this. Here's a family from Germany, appeals to the United States government. Please, 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 we ran to the United States because we wanted religious freedom. That's what you were founded on. That's what everybody told us this nation was about. Please grant us asylum. The United States immigration judge says, you know what? You're absolutely right. There is no way we could turn you back to Germany. You should have the right to teach your children what you want to teach them. And then along comes this guy named Barack Obama and his Department of Justice. And he says, one, how dare you think that you have the ability to parent your own children? That's why we're getting rid of words like father and mother and replacing them with parent and guardian. So how dare you think that you have the ability to be a father or a mother? Don't you understand that I am government? Hear me roar. And then they use this case of this German homeschooling family to implement it on the rest of us, because their argument has nothing to do with their viability of remaining here in America. Their argument is completely based on the fact that the government should have the ability to force children to go to public school. Now, I don't care if you sing Kumbaya and walk with teachers' unions on Sundays. I don't care. You should recognize the ability for parents to be parents. More appropriately, for mothers and fathers to be mothers and fathers. And when you don't recognize that, you are aiding the problem. If this court case wins in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, all of you are in trouble. I don't even care if you don't have kids. Because this represents something so much broader than just, well, we have to get them to school to read and learn about history. No, this is so much bigger than that. What this boils down to is the government saying you're not human. You have no right to be human, and how dare you even think about being a human? Don't you understand that you are just a citizen? You are livestock? I mean, this is really, really big. And what I find fascinating about it is how little media play it's getting. This should be the headline on the world news tonight, because it affects all of us. Are they going to talk about it? Nah, probably not. Are you? Oh, I hope so. Please do. Talk about this at work. Talk about this at school. Talk about this with other parents. When you pick up your kids today, say, oh my goodness, did you hear how they're trying to destroy us? Did you hear what they're trying to do to your kids? And share with them a copy of this show or the article or whatever you have to do. This isn't about me, it's about your children. So use the WorldNet Daily article, that's fine. But do something, bring this to their attention, get people talking about this. Because if we lose this is a huge loss in terms of strategic battlefield advantage that we had. Until this case, nobody bothered to even question the real legitimacy of a father and a mother being a father and a mother. And now the government's saying no. Absolutely crazy. Let's go to Robert. Robert, welcome to the show. What say you, sir? Oh, man, we dropped Robert. Robert, call back, because I want to get your input, because I think I know what you're going to say. Call back, Robert. And if you're a homeschooler, call in. Because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Up until now, you got to say, well, no, this is my decision. I'm a mother. I'm a father. This is what my decision for my family. But if this goes through, what are you going to do? When they come to your door with the SWAT team and say, no, your kid has to go to school, what are you going to do? We'll be back right after this. All right, now let's go to Robert in Missouri. Robert, what say you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Josh. I was wanting to ask you, have you seen the movie Dreams from My Real Father yet?
No.
You haven't?
Nope, well, I haven't.
That's a must-see. It's by a guy named Joel Gilbert, and it covers the life, the other life of Barack Obama. And it's a very plausible scenario, and I suggest everyone that's listening right now, you watch that movie, Dreams from My Real Father. It gets into the implementation of the communist agenda. I mean, Chicago, it goes deep into the Chicago where Obama comes out of, the political machine which he comes out of, being the hotbed of communism. I mean, there's so many communists in Chicago. It'll make your stomach turn when you watch this movie. But yeah, I mean, one of the planks in the Communist Manifesto is public education. And so this surprises me very little that the administration, the present administration, is trying to totally destroy homeschooling and get every single child in the United States into the hellish public school Marxist indoctrination centers that they are. And so this, this doesn't surprise me about it. You got to watch that movie. I mean, I don't recommend a lot of movies to a lot of people, but my gosh, you need to see it because there's a lot of things in there that a lot of people do not know about Barry Davis, Barack Obama.
Well, let me ask you a question, Robert. Do you have kids?
No.
No. If you did, because I don't either. I'm not even married, so I don't have kids. But I really want parents' insights because if you had children and they said to you, Robert, we have just won in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and we now have the right to take your children away from you and force them to go to public schools, what would you do? Would you move? I mean, honestly, I don't know, because people are at that point, Robert, where they need to start answering these questions. Do you move to Costa Rica, just picking a country at random? Do you move out of the nation? Do you run to the hills? What do you do?
Well, you know what? I live in St. Louis. It's a very wacko lib, I don't want to say lib, wacko Marxist bunch of people that try to run the St. Louis City and St. Louis County government. But outside of St. Louis, you could take these. You're gonna have to relocate to an area of the country. There's still plenty of areas in this country where the federal government doesn't have its talent totally in the throat of, local and county government. So it's about relocation, I think. And you got to get out of these places where this stuff's going on. I'm sorry, but you can call it urban sprawl, you can call it whatever you want, but people that have half a brain are going to have to get out of these far left hellholes that this stuff's trying to happen in.
Well, here's my fear. Here's my fear. We have seen 200-plus great sheriffs stand up and tell the federal government, I don't care what law you pass concerning the Second Amendment, we're not going to take guns away from people. Awesome. My fear
is... It's up over 400 now. It's up over 400.
Hallelujah.
Now. I'm an oath keeper, so I monitor this stuff. It's well above 400 now.
Awesome. So we have a growing number of sheriffs that are on board with this. Here's my fear, though. As prevalent as the gun debate is, and as divisive as an issue that the politicians try to make it, it's obvious that is something that draws the patriotism out of people. On the flip side of that, we have a situation where a lot of people love public schools so much that it's the untouchable. I mean, the public school is the issue that we never question. Oh, yes, dump more money into it. And my fear is, and I'm hoping it's unfounded, but my fear is we won't get as much support from the county level on this issue that we need. And if they do win in the Sixth Circuit, we won't have that buffer gap, and there's going to be less area to run. I would love to see all 400-plus sheriffs say, no, you know what? We're not going to enforce this either. But there's going to come a point that even if they do that, there's going to come a point where the federal government says, wait a second, you're not going to enforce our drug laws, you're not going to enforce our education laws, you're not going to enforce our Second Amendment laws. First, we're going to cut off funds and try to starve you out, in a sense, and then next there's going to be an actual confrontation. And like it or not, whether we should say it or not, it appears that that's the direction this is heading.
Well, here's my fear, and this is, well, I don't want to say it's a fear because you got to cast fear aside, but here's my concern.
Right.
That they are moving, by their little machinations here, they're moving patriots in closer with each other. Let's say the state of Texas. They're the number one target to me to a federal goon force takeover because there's so many patriots in Texas. People are flocking there that now you're going to have this community in one small area to where it would be a much easier fight than if we were scattered out all over this nation. And so that's what a concern that I have is, like, all the patriots want to get together and have our own communities, but then heck, it's a lot easier if you're looking at the stratagems of war here to say, hey, they're all in one area. We can take them out much easier. And so that's a concern I have is when people start to coalesce, then they're an easier target for the federal beast, if you will.
strategically, there's a certain amount of awareness in that same vein along the lines of going off grid. This whole idea, well, I'm going to be a patriot, I'm going to go off grid. If it were really to hit the proverbial fan, you become the odd man out. The only thing I would have to do is turn off the grid, go up in a helicopter, turn on my smart app that shows me the grid, find the house that has light still, and say, yeah, well, we found him. And there's a lot of strategy to be said about hiding amongst the masses, because it's harder to find you if you were to strategically plan out a course. Well, now this is getting completely tangential and into an area that I don't even... Whew. Anyway, thank you for the call, Robert.
All right.
So we have this situation where obviously, I mean, look at what Robert had to say. I mean, he knows the ramifications of what this means. And we do have these situations where we have concerns and fear. And let's just real quickly talk about this idea of fear. Fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's how you approach fear. When I go skiing, I don't stay on the bunny hill. I go to the Black Diamond, the double Black Diamond. I'll jump off a cliff. Why? Because it offers me that little element of fear. So my ability to embrace fear is empowering. We've been taught that fear is such a bad thing that we need to avoid it, we need to eliminate it, we need to turn away from it. But let's think of it another way. Let's say you had an 8-year-old child and they were out in the woods and you taught them there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right? And they come across a bear. And they said, well, Mommy told me there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Sometimes fear keeps you alive. And I understand the general sentiment here, don't be paralyzed by fear. And that is what the sentiment needs to say. I completely agree with that. Do not let your life be limited by fear. Use that fear as a strategic stepping stone, whether towards enjoyment and empowerment or to strategic moves that protect you and advance your cause and efforts. So that's my take on fear. But as we look at situations like this push to take away your ability to become a mother and a father and your rights therein, we have to acknowledge that there is a line and we've crossed it. This isn't, well, they're banning soda. I would have thought that would have been the line. Obviously not. But we're past that. There are 17 states where you can't collect rainwater, for goodness sakes. The government says, nope, that's our water. You can't collect it. 17 states. There are places now where if you hunt food, you can't give any to your neighbor because you're not a USDA-inspected facility. Huh. How long before you can't even consume it yourself? And don't say it's not coming. For goodness sakes, if we ban soda, it's only nanoseconds before somebody says, well, you can't eat your own meat. You have to have it processed. You can't even feed yourself. We'll be back right after this.